So, I was doing some research about Lynton Crosby because obviously the news articles about him have pretty much fallen by the wayside, and nobody's really talking about Lynton Crosby anymore. But he's still obviously a very dodgy character. He's Australian. I'm not saying that Australians are dodgy in the slightest, but he is Australian. And an interesting article in the Telegraph today, I think it was. Was it today? No, the 25th of July. That is titled "Linton Crosby is a master strategist with the common touch," and this seems to be like a nice piece saying that he is innocent. It says, "The rage directed at the Tories' political strategist is a sure sign that he's doing his job well. There's a dirty little secret at the heart of the scandal surrounding the Tories' political strategist, Linton Crosby, but it's not a conspiracy of silence at the heart of number 10, nor is it a tale of undue influence exercised over politicians to gain advantage for commercial clients. It's the plain fact that Crosby is actually pretty good at his job." And it's the whole thing about that, this is supposedly a political stunt because the opposing parties are scared of Lynton Crosby's help being given to David Cameron. Now, although obviously that article is a load of bullshit, and if you look up who actually wrote the article, there's a guy that used to work for the ex-Prime Minister of Australia, that lady, I can't remember what her name is, Julia Gillard, that's it, Julia Gillard. And but this guy who wrote the article is Scottish, and he works a lot actually with he's in with the crew who try to influence independence in Scotland. Somebody Murphy is in one of my videos, and he's written a nice article as a fellow campaign strategist about Linton Crosby, saying he's an innocent man, so that's nice. But when I was researching about Lynton Crosby, just to find out a little bit more about him, I came across this lady, Nadine Dorries, because when I was looking up the news, there was a whole thing about her expenses scandal. I clicked on it, and it talks about how she apparently gave some travel expenses, £3,000, she repaid it, and there was no problem. But she insinuates in her blog, there's a link to the blog post, that it's a bit strange that suddenly she was investigated when really there's lots of expenses that she could claim that she doesn't claim because she doesn't need to, and she hardly ever overclaims on her expenses. And they're actually picking up on a thing that happened when she was travelling a lot and she was buying the wrong tickets or something. And they're saying that over that long period of time, you have to pay back the price of upgrading your ticket, which turns out to be £3,000, and she paid it back. But she's saying that she was being targeted by this company called IPSA, which is the organisation that so-called independently looks at expenses claims by MPs. And the thing I picked up from the thing I picked up in her blog post is this little name, Matrix Chambers, right? There's a little paragraph. I thought it was a joke, first of all. It says, "This report was due out on Monday. However, I've lost count how many times IPSA have referred to the report, which makes no findings against me, back to their incredibly expensive lawyers at Matrix Chambers," or at least I believe that's who they use. Now, I thought that was a joke, like Matrix Chambers. I think that's who they use. It was an insinuation that there's like a black hole somewhere of money or some weird organisation. They're using black magic or something. I thought that's what she was insinuating. But when you Google Matrix Chambers, of course, it comes up, and it's very strange. There's a map. It's somewhere near Holborn in London, close to the Inns of Court. And it says, I'll read out the Wikipedia article. Matrix Chambers. The address is Griffin Building, Gray's Inn, London. Gray's Inn is one of the inns of court. So it's basically the law society. It says, the Wikipedia article says, Matrix Chambers is a barrister's set situated at Gray's Inn, London. It was founded in April 2000 by 22 barristers from 7 different chambers. Matrix was founded shortly before the implementation of the Human Rights Act in October 2000. It caused mild controversy when it was leaked that a new chambers was being set up with many of the leading and most high-profile barristers in the area of human rights, who had all been headhunted. It was the first concrete spin-off to come from the new legislation and broke new ground in being a specialist set focusing on criminal law, constitutional law and human rights with an international perspective. And then, of course, the money shot is this little name. Members include Cherie Booth. Cherie Booth. For those of you who don't realise who she is, it's Tony Blair's wife. So Tony Blair's wife, human rights with an international perspective, the special elitist group, the set up in the year 2000, and Nadine Dorries is insinuating, or says, where is it? That these guys are accepting a lot of money from this organisation, IPSA, which was set up by the government to regulate expenses after the expenses scandal. And she's saying that this little group of lawyers, here we are, she says, is there a connection between the people at Matrix and board members at the IPSA? Did IPSA use a tendering process before they appointed their lawyers? Or is someone in Matrix a friend of someone at IPSA? I'm only asking because it's public money, and the rumour is that PSA have spent £500,000 with Matrix. So that's interesting. And obviously that there's a place called Matrix is interesting. There's a picture of it. It's a very, other than the fact it's got like 2 big pyramids on its roof, it looks fairly normal, to be honest. Obviously, I might go there on foot and have a look. It looks like a normal thing. I probably believe it's mostly filled with administration workers that work underneath all of these big lawyers like Cherie Booth. But yeah, that is interesting. So there's a lot of names, of course, associated with it as well. I'm going to look into all of these, but feel free to do the same. All these ones in blue are these elitist lawyers working on human rights and constitutional law with an international perspective. Constitutional law with an international perspective. I think we all know what that means. The final thing I want to say is about Linton Crosby. There's an article from the Huffington Post, the Huff Post, yeah. And the article says, Linton Crosby should be sent back to Australia, says Peer. Right? That is interesting because Linton Crosby, as a campaign manager, gets people elected by using exactly that tactic. The fact is, somebody of the House of Lords have said he should be sent back to Australia, which is a racist sentiment. Now, everyone in the wider audience automatically is going to be against a racist statement. Now, that is a psychological ploy that is used by Linton Crosby, that sort of thing, when he helps people like Boris Johnson get elected and David Cameron get elected. Now, the argument about Linton Crosby is that he's doing nothing wrong, and he said he's done nothing wrong. He said, I've never lobbied David Cameron, we'd never spoken about it, we don't talk about that sort of thing. But of course, he hasn't been working for him very long, has he? I mean, he's very, very involved with the inner workings of Whitehall and all of the cronies surrounding David Cameron. He's very involved with lots of corporate companies and investments and shoving money about. He's a very switched on, shady character. He's trying to get to know David Cameron. That's why he hasn't spoken to him about it if he says he hasn't. They haven't got to that stage in their relationship yet. You know, they've got to become buddies, to go like on a trip somewhere, maybe down to the beach, go play golf. Linton Crosby. and The Matrix.